Welcome to Issues at Hand. My name is Daphne Karange Kangove. And remember that Issues at Hand is brought to you by Protea Hotel by Marriott and Tebe. Well, we have a lot of issues going on in the country, but today we are looking at World AIDS Day. And of course, we are going to be discussing the issue of the high prevalency among the youth and so many other things down there. So we have beautiful people here with us today to tell us more, to enlighten us and sensitize us on this topic. We have on my right here, the extreme corner is Miss Nampijja Patricia, Communications and Advocacy Officer at SRHR Alliance Uganda. And then here we have Miss Ruth Awor, the Executive Director, Uganda Network of Young People Living with HIV AIDS. Now you may be wondering, what do they do, where they come from, but they're going to be telling us all of that. Today's theme is ending inequality among young people. We know that there has been reports that the prevalence is so high among adolescents and, of course, women at a greater extent. So we are here to understand, to see how we can prevent this from ongoing in our nation. Can you please say hello, starting with you, Patricia?
Hello everybody, hello Family TV. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to talk about young people and HIV on a day such as this one. My name is Patricia Nampijja and I work with the SRHR Alliance Uganda as the Communications and Advocacy Officer.
Well, you're going to break it down for our viewers what SRHR really means.
So SRHR stands for Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights. So we look to deal with issues and challenges that affect young people's health and their rights, especially in terms of their reproductive health, because we know that as human beings, we are all reproductive beings.
Oh, yes.
So we look to help them understand, one, their nature, two, how to deal with their challenges and the different issues they deal with, questions of growth, puberty, development, all these curiosities you get as a young person growing up. So we provide information and services to young people through our various partners to see that young people really understand themselves, their being, and know which services to seek and where to seek them.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That is really beautiful. I'm going to go to you, Miss Ruth.
Hello, good morning to all our viewers. My name is Ruth Awor. I work with the Uganda Network of Young People Living with HIV as the Executive Director, but also a member of the Youth and Adolescent Steering Committee of the Uganda AIDS Commission.
Oh, wow. So we have the right people actually today to be telling us about what is happening here in our nation. Well, I do not know how true these reports are, but I understand that HIV came from Africa because of hunters who got in touch with primate blood, and then later it becomes HIV, and now the issue of AIDS that we are discussing. Is that true?
It's the science and the origin of HIV is really contentious. I'm very sure if you Google
so many theories,
you're going to find like a million theories.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's important to right now understand that we have transitioned more into dealing with the preventive measures of HIV beyond where it came from, whether it was a primate or a donkey or a camel.
Yeah, because there are so many people who are running away, thinking maybe I may run away from a human, but later I find it in the bush.
Yeah.
So talking about HIV, well, it being on the high for a very long time, Uganda has been known as one of the nations that has really done its best to see the decline in the prevalency, but still with it reducing, it is still a challenge that needs to be understood. What are the current statistics of people living with HIV?
So the current statistics of people living with HIV are sadly, disproportionately, largely women and girls and young people. The percentage of 5.5 of the national population are living positively, but of these, about 7 point something are women, right? And then about 3 point something are men, showing how disproportionate it is for women and girls especially compared to the men. And later, of course, we shall discuss, and Ruth will take us through why is it mostly the women and why is it mostly the young people. But according to the statistics right now, the national, we should know that it's disproportionately affecting young women,
young
especially
women,
those
young
within
people.
the age of 15 to 25.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
When I get to thinking about it being mostly the young people, it brings me to a place of sensitization. Yes, Ruth is going to tell us why. But I go back to the days, some of us have been around for quite a while. So we have seen many die of HIV. We have treated relatives, buried many friends. So we know what it entails, and so we are able to backtrack and see how to prevent it. But now I am thinking the young people are here and the sensitization is not as it was those days, and there is not a lot being talked about when it comes to HIV. So I am partly blaming it to that, much as to understand, and you shall enlighten me more when it comes to women. Actually, one of the points they said was the anatomy, the reproductive anatomy of a woman, exposing them to this disease. Well, Ruth, are you going to tell us why is it that we are seeing so many youth right now being affected by HIV?
Thank you very much. It's true. And just like Patricia shared, the prevalence at national level is at 5.5, and only 3.8 are men and 7.1 are women. And the question comes around why? We're having an earlier discussion today, and what came out as funny but also worryingly true is that even if the prevalence among us women is high, they're all being affected by men.
I know, that's what we're saying as well.
Okay. So it's a question of who is doing what wrong.
Yes.
But just like you said, we live in an era of where women are vulnerable due to different reasons. And one of the reasons is the anatomy.
Yes.
It gives them the environment that is really, really favorable for the virus to breed and spread in the body, not like our male counterparts. But also the fact that women sometimes are exposed to different social structural barriers, like gender-based violence, in that you find that a woman has been raped, or they have been defiled, or they have been married off at a tender age, and their ability to negotiate for safe sex is really, really minimal.
And that is true.
Yes, and then you also realize that at a certain time, we as young women, we are put in a position where we are really desperate. For example, if you need some sexual reproductive health and rights, you have your needs. For example, if you need sanitary towels and you cannot afford them because I'm young, I'm a young woman, I'm not working, I'm dependent on my parents, and at some point maybe my parent is not in position to provide these particular services. So I'll go for a male counterpart who is older and willing to give me this money. And the moment I compromise to that, it means that I'm not in position to negotiate and be like, okay, let's use a condom or not. And then why it's really, really rampant amongst the young people is an issue of information, first and foremost, just like you shared. Those of the others who were there before, I wouldn't want to say the older ones who were there before.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Who got to see those days when people were really dying, really skinny. HIV has changed face. In that right now, it's not, to some people, it's no longer a threat. We are treating it more like another flu or a malaria that you can treat. People are forgetting how deadly the disease is, how incurable it is at the moment, that they can easily compromise. We are always in conversations with girls, and you find them saying, for me to get pregnant, I would rather get HIV.
Oh, wow.
Because a pregnancy is visible and I would be judged, but someone may not know that I'm living with HIV. So we need to go back to the times where we're telling young people how deadly HIV is, not to create the fear factor, but to make them understand the reality of what actually living with HIV is, the pros and cons, and what actually changes about your life if you're living with HIV. But also the fact that many young people have access to a lot of information online, which is good and bad at the same time.
Yeah, depending on what info you get.
So we need to be able to utilize the different platforms as programmers, as parents, as churches, as media people, to be able to put out the right information. Because you may find some of them having several myths, different, Dr. Google said.
Yes.
So we should be able to control what is being consumed by these young people on the different platforms.
Oh, yeah, that is really, really true, Patricia. And Patricia, this is so disheartening to know that people are living with HIV like any other disease, and especially the young people, you know, like what she just said, someone would rather get HIV than than be pregnant. I have seen many who say that I took a pill for against pregnancy, postina. Then you ask, did you even think about HIV? And they're like, what is that? It's just like any other flu, or it's malaria. So actually one once say that it came for people. Who shall it kill if it doesn't kill us? And that is really, really bad. And I am glad, like you said, Ruth, that we ought to use the platforms available. Now many young people are on the gadgets every other day, accessing this, accessing that. So at the end of the day, consuming what definitely will kill them at the end of the day. Now, talking about today's theme, I'm going to start with you, woman of God. You're going to tell us about ending inequality among the young people. Why this theme?
So just as Ruth has mentioned in trying to draw for us the perspective of why women and young people are disproportionately affected by HIV compared to the men, in a way she hinted to so many of these inequalities that embed HIV within our society or within our settings. Because if I'm not as a married young woman, for example, able to negotiate with my partner that maybe we should take a test, or I see that you have an STI and I don't know where you got it from, but that's a sign that maybe we should go and test even for HIV. But given that as a woman I'm expected to be respectful to my partner and to be obedient and all that, then that structure does not allow me to negotiate in a way. In other words, the woman is disproportionately affected. But then also the most apparent cause is poverty. We know that poverty does exist, and we know that poverty is even worse for the women because they've not had a chance at many have not had a chance at a better education. Many have not had a chance at empowerment to be able to start and sustain a business, and in a way are very dependent on the men. So the fact that you're already dealing with a financial difficulty, it makes you unable in a way to even thrive when it comes to health, or even to say no when this man approaches you and says, you need this, give me, we meet here, I give you the money you want, you can get what you want. So the fact that you're already in a position of that nature of vulnerability, the inability to negotiate your rights, the inability to negotiate what you want vis-a-vis the effects of what you're going to walk away with, is the inequality we are talking about today. And therefore we are saying that we take away inequality and we give both equity and equality. We're not seeking just equality. We're not saying that same table, what we are also talking about equity. And in a way, equity is that we acknowledge that this person is more disproportionately affected, and therefore we put more effort towards them, that person, that so that they may reach the level that can then allow them to attain equality. So that's where we're at, and that's why that theme, as of course we look forward to 2030, which is the target for the end and eradication of AIDS. Exactly.
Wow, thank you so much for that enlightenment. And yes, I have seen a lot of inequality, and many cases seeing that people cannot speak for themselves. For example, I am reminded of the story of that 9-year-old girl that was being sold off to marriage to a very rich man. And I believe it's because the family needed the money. And then the girl, because she is young, she has no say in it, so she could just go on until the minister intervened to her rescue. And going to you, Ruth, I'm looking at today's celebrations. What are the activities that are being put there to enlighten people and sensitize people more about the prevalence of HIV?
Thank you very much. So to start off, the national celebrations are happening in Rukunjiri at Boma Grounds. I don't know what Boma Grounds in Rukunjiri. That's being led by the Uganda AIDS Commission. But again, we also recognize that different players are doing different activations, information sharing, converging in different places to commemorate the World AIDS Day. So we are all celebrating, commemorating, because the day looks at bringing together the milestones that have been achieved, but also looking at how do we get to the end goal of ending AIDS by 2030.
Yes.
So different people are doing different things. Different players, civil society organizations, places of worship, some of them are doing that, the government entities. But I'm loving the fact that we are all putting young people at the forefront right now. And if I'm to take you a little bit back to the theme, is that we are recognizing the need to have the male counterparts on the play. We realize that the theme also brings into play the boys, which has been rare for the past different years.
They've always been sidelined.
Yes, they have always been sidelined. And the reason as to why the male or the boys have been brought into this equation is actually drawing back to what I said earlier of we are getting these privileges in women.
Yes.
But the male
where are they getting it from?
That are bringing it up. So we are recognizing the need and the importance of having that equalized level ground where we can all contribute effectively to the response. So if we put away all the inequalities, because we realize that some of them would be like, it's because of the poor health-seeking behaviors of the males. So if we're also creating a platform where they could be able to seek the services, maybe, we are only hoping, maybe there would be also a reduction in a way that they are spreading the virus, in a way that they are contracting the virus, because at the end of the day, all that we want to see is an HIV-free generation.
That is true. You know, when you say that, the men being the ones actually who are giving the disease to the women, not saying really, it could even be the other way around.
Sure.
But it is known and it is common knowledge actually that a man can have over 5 women. And then he's getting it from one and then taking it to the other and the other. So truly we can see the trend. And someone came out to say it could be because there are fewer men and more women. So everyone is grabbing onto a man that they can find out there. That one we shall call unto God for that inequality. And then when we get into strategy for ending the HIV/AIDS prevalency here in Uganda come 2030, I want to understand, our viewers would want to know what the strategy is. Well, I remember in 2015, the Uganda AIDS Commission came up with a strategy. I did not know how it played out, but I don't know what plan we have now, come all the way to 2030.
I think I'll start.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. I think that the strategy remains the same, the 95, 95, 95,
yes,
which we are looking at towards 2030, which is the taste,
yes,
treat, and then also see that those that are positive have a compressed viral load.
Yeah.
So while we have realized great progress towards actually achieving these, especially through the various efforts of the government, various efforts of various ambassadors and the UNAIDS and CSOs and anybody that is playing a part in this, we still know that there is still a way to go because we are not yet there.
Yes,
so when you ask about strategies, I believe all the old strategies are still in place. I'm a person that still believes that ABC still works.
Oh, definitely. It has never changed.
Yes, of course. Although it was preached then when we were growing up and now it's less, I believe it's still a strategy we can adopt alongside the 95, 95, 95 and any other strategies that are being embraced in terms of providing young people with information,
yes,
in terms of young people knowing the prevention that is there, prevention measures, in terms of young people, those that are positive, young or old, embracing positive living. That I'll be positive, but I'll be healthy, and I'll also ensure that I do not transmit this to another person. So I think that in terms of strategy, all old and new strategies in a way still can apply from ABC to the 95, 95, 95. But I still believe that we need to embrace the part of information. If young people know what this is, know what HIV is, know how to prevent themselves from contracting it, they know how to, what to do should you test positive, they know where to go, they know that there is no harm in testing. Because when you test, you know, and then you know what to do. If you're negative, preventive. If you're positive, positive living, which is also something that a person can live by.
Oh yeah. You want to add something on that?
Sure. So when you look at ending AIDS by 2030, the government is really, really working hard under the leadership of the president. You realize that there was a launch of the Presidential Fast Track Initiative that is being pioneered by the Uganda AIDS Commission, and under that there are 5 thematic areas that are being looked at. And I'll name those that I remember offhand, and some of them include engaging men in the response. And then it also includes accelerating the elimination of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. So we want to first close a tap of those who are contracting HIV through mother-to-child. And then we're looking at consolidating the progress that is being made, taking into stock what is not working, what is working, but also ensuring that there is coordination between the different players. You realize that in the country there are different people that are doing a lot of things around HIV. So unless we can take coordination to that level and know who is doing what, so that we avoid duplication, we know that if Ruth is doing ABC, then maybe Patricia can go to treatment and ensure that the treatment is available. So it's all about combined efforts, ensuring that we are different players are doing what we're supposed to be doing to the response. Then we can be able to contribute and ensure that by 2030, definitely we are ending AIDS.
Oh yes. When we get into the ABC, of course, we know it is abstinence, and then being faithful and the use of condoms. It takes me to behavior as well, because when we look at Kalangala being one of the places that has the highest HIV prevalence, but of course because of their population being very small, sometimes you could easily overlook it. We have people using condoms, but I was speaking to people yesterday about it, and I found out that they reuse the condoms, they wash them, hang them out to dry, or even share. You know, somebody wants to go sleep with someone, they help me with your CD, and and then later they wash. So I do not know to what extent you can tell that person that really you're not protecting yourself, because by the time you are borrowing a CD, then you don't understand what you're doing. So I do not know if you can comment on that, Patricia.
I think it goes back to the strategy we are talking about of information, but the other qualifying factor to information should be accurate information, and also in a way I will call it localized information. We should get away from thinking that the facts are there, people should take them. The facts are there, but are they understood?
They need to be broken down.
Are the instructions given understandable to the person in Kalangala, the same way they are understandable to the young person in Kampala? Or do we need to speak to the young person in Kalangala a little differently so that they understand this better? It's not simply about saying we've provided information, but have you provided understandable, comprehensible information for this person to understand that within their context, that this is what this works like, this is what the condom has to work like. You don't share it, you don't reuse it, you don't have you given all that information. It's just to tell them, well, here is a condom,
protect yourself,
protect yourself, and then you walk away. So I think we need to explain and localize information and ensure that it's also as accurate as possible.
Thank you.
So, I feel like on top of the information as we are creating awareness, it should be backed by the availability of these services. Because at some point you realize that they know they need a condom to protect themselves, but could be a question of the condoms are not available. So I have to reuse what is available. I have to share what is available. So as we are creating awareness in the communities, let's all the different stakeholders play our roles. Because we have done a lot to create information awareness, as Patricia has put it out. But it's a question of, are the condoms available in the communities? Because we could be talking that they don't know that you do not have to use it, which could be true, but it could also be a reason of the condoms are not available, we have to use what is available to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I think what you're saying also is definitely right, because they wouldn't be washing them. So if they are washing and hanging them, that means they know that it's supposed to be clean by the time you are going to use it. But still, it really latex. Anyways, that is really disheartening. But yes, like you said, it is important that we go back to all the strategies when we look at ABC and now the 95, 95, 95. It takes me back to the 10 years ago when we had the 90-90-90 target, that Uganda was actually one of the 8 countries globally that was able to hit that target. We had 90% of people testing, 90% of the people on art, and also 90% with suppressed viral load. Now, moving fast forward to our target, come 2030. We have the 95, 95, 95. And currently we are standing at testing is 80.9%. We know we are looking at 95, but we are at 80.9. And then when it comes to treatment, we know people who know their status and are on treatment are at 96.1%. Now that one is even beyond the 95, which is really good. And then the viral load suppression is at 92.2%, meaning we are remaining with about a percentage of 2.8%. But what I am seeing now, which is the number one, which is testing, and is being shunned by many. I do not know how we're going to deal with that. I do not know if there is a strategy out there that you or any other stakeholders are planning to bring up to see that people do test. And because you cannot get on the therapy when you do not know that you have HIV. And actually it's been proven that testing and knowing your status helps way too much on the transmission of the disease. Yeah. Because sometimes when you don't know, you're going to go around sleeping around, probably having unprotected sex, and before you know it, you are getting many more infected. So this question of testing, how are we going to deal?
So to start you off, the issue of testing is always with stigma.
Yes.
People are really, really afraid of knowing their status. Most of them would rather not know than actually know their HIV status, and that is because of the environment that we have surrounded with living with HIV. People know that when you're living with HIV, it's more of a death sentence. You're going to be discriminated in your community. You will no longer be able to associate with people. You will no longer be able to reach out to the partners that you wanted to reach out to. So they would rather my HIV status not known, I'd rather not know my status and have to take medications every day than actually knowing it and protecting myself and the people that I love. So one thing that we need to do if we're to encourage people to test for HIV is, first and foremost, let's remove the stigma. Let's reduce the stigma around living with HIV. Let's package our information very well. Let the people know where the testing services are, because some of them actually do not know where the services are.
Yes.
And then let's also support them to access these services, because you'll find that these services are supposed to be free, but some people actually choose to pay for them because they don't know where to get the free services.
So we are here to answer why and what we can do to see that we totally reduce the prevalency and kick HIV out of Uganda come 2030. Back to you, Ruth. Before we went, we were talking about why testing is being shunned by many people, and you hit on a very important point, which is stigma. But before we talk about how we can reduce stigma, but I want us to look at other causes of people failing to get testing, like you said, the availability of services, and also some places where they are charged when they are supposed to be free, or you find a very high cost, and yet it should be really subsidized. And all this is keeping people from testing, and the government ought to look into this, especially when it comes to private clinics. Sure. You find a person is going there, and then they are being given either wrong results or they're charged highly. I have known of some doctors that I get to interview sometimes, my other side of work, and they tell you that a person comes and they want you to change their results as well so that they can lie to their partner that they are free of HIV, and yet they are not. Now, those are all challenges when it comes to testing. But now we are talking about stigma. There are so many people actually out there who even fear to test, because I have seen some who have died after knowing they had HIV. They start going sick after knowing they have it, and yet before they were all healthy and doing well. So I do not know how we are going to deal with stigma, if there is any strategy that has been put out there.
When we talk about stigma, stigma is really, really complex. It affects those who are living with HIV and those who are not living with HIV in one way or the other. So when you talk about people and testing and stigma, it's always around how will I live again after finding out about my HIV status. That denial of I'll have to take medications every day for the rest of my life, yet I'm not feeling sick. Because sometimes people actually, even if they're HIV positive, some of them don't fall sick. Just like you've mentioned, some of them stay healthy and can still live in the community, but at the back of their minds, they know they have to take the medications. So all that fear and the fear of having to live that reality makes them desire to stay at least ignorant. Some of them choose to be ignorant. But again, sometimes it's also an issue of information, just like we've talked. Some of them do not know that actually the more you delay, the more adverse the virus gets. And before you know it, you're getting AIDS and you're becoming that person you were afraid of becoming before. So what we need to do is, first and foremost, challenge the stigma, both internal and external. Sometimes it starts with the self, you knowing that, okay, this is my life. I have to do this whether I want it or not for the safety of my life and those around me. But also knowing that you're doing it for you and not anyone around you, because knowing your status saves you as an individual, not anyone else, because at the end of the day when you're dying, you're the one dying, not your neighbor that you're afraid of. And then also the fact that we need to work with the people around those living with HIV. Now I'm talking about stigma for those living with HIV. We have seen young people who have been stigmatized in their very homes where they're supposed to be loved and taken care of. We have seen some of them who have been actually forced into marriages because the parents feel like, after all, you have no value in life, so the best you can do is fetch me bride wealth so that at least I get something out of your life. And we have also seen some of them who have even gone to the extent of committing suicide because they feel like they have no one in their life. They feel like no one is there to support them. They feel like their life is ending. So if we are to live in this world, because I always say we shall never wake up when there is no one living with HIV in Uganda. We are in this world already, people living with HIV already in this world, and they're not going to get wiped out in one night. So that means we need to forge a way of living with them and coexisting with them peacefully. So we need to appreciate the differences, appreciate that the people living with HIV, but also understand that associating with someone who is living with HIV does not necessarily transmit the virus to you. So you can easily associate with them, even if they are your partners. There are very, very many measures that have been put in place whereby you can even marry a person who is negative and still do not convert their SRHR status. So we need to address the stigma, support young people who are living with HIV, because that stigma is actually one of the reasons as to why many of them get that malice and the desire to spread the virus. And they be like, if I'm living like this and people are treating me like this, then I would rather serve it to them and let them taste what I'm living. So if we are to live in a world that is safe for all of us, let's create love, let's coexist and support one another to live positively.
Wow, and you are very, very right, because I think about some families who actually, having known that they had a child that has HIV, they don't take them to school because they think, now, why waste money? They may die along the way. And even others think, maybe now I have no chance of getting married, let me sleep around as much as I can. But I think it comes from the issue of people not understanding the difference between HIV and AIDS. and I think this is something that we ought to educate the masses, our viewers, that actually HIV is just what brings the AIDS, and there are stages. Could you take us through, my dear?
I would have loved to do that too, Ruth.
No, we shall both chip in, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the difference between HIV and AIDS is that as we hear HIV is the
Human immunodeficiency
Yes,
virus.
So it's just the virus that gets into your body and then compromises your immunity.
Oh, yes.
So if you take your therapy, if you do the right thing and get tested and take your therapy, right time, adhere in all ways, you will never face AIDS. So AIDS is the acquired
immune
deficiency syndrome. In other words, if the virus gets into your body and then compromises your immunity, you become more susceptible to other diseases, like we've known that people with HIV commonly suffer from tuberculosis, TB, which is due to the issue to do with what? With the immunocompromise. We've heard that people that have HIV will usually suffer from other ailments, right?
Yes.
It's because your immunity has been
lowered.
Compromised.
Yes.
Exactly. So that is the difference between HIV and AIDS.
Yes.
HIV is the virus that will compromise your immunity when it gets into your body. But should you adhere to therapy, it only remains a virus, and you will non-transition to the AIDS. The AIDS bit is what we had. People in our generation have only heard of the stories and maybe seen documentaries, but AIDS is what they actually called sirimu. That the person gets very slender, very small, and they are very sickly, they are coughing, they're wasting away. Now that is the AIDS. But
the advanced stage of it.
Exactly. And that is what the 2030, the Agenda 2030 seeks to do away with. We're not saying that no more HIV, we're saying no more AIDS. In other words, all people that are living with the virus have the ability to stay healthy. They have access to their therapy, live longer, live productive lives, and never have to die of AIDS.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Ruth. We'll say it right there. Actually, yes, it is why the 95-95 strategy is there, which the last one is supposed to be viral load suppression. Another one comes if you stay on therapy and you're not able to actually transmit it, you are going to be healthy and stay longer. So all these worries will be done away with. So that is the information that people need out there. You know, when we cry AIDS, actually some people even say I have AIDS, and yet what they have is HIV. So at the end of the day, they give up on life, and yet they could really be productive. I want to go to something that you touched, Ruth, and I'm going to start with you. She'll come in to supplement. When it comes to some people who are either born with HIV or they find themselves getting it along the way, and they feel like, I should give it to someone else because I did not choose this. Why should I suffer alone? How do we deal with a change of mindset to see that a person can live positively even with a neighbor not having to worry about them?
Great. So when most people that many times have been reaching out to the organization with scenarios of the same kind, whereby I am children or young people who have converted the SRHR status or who have contracted the virus are really, really hard on other people, or they are really, really resentful to the other people, and they want to transmit the virus to everyone else. I remember the story of one who even had a black book. By the end of the year, I have to have filled this black book with the ones I've transmitted to. So why at the end of the day most of the people end up like this is because of the denial, because the reality is living with HIV is not easy. And if you're not supported very well, when you do not have a very wide support network, it's very easy for one to slide into depression, to slide into anxiety, or even to adapt to such behaviors of wanting to transmit the virus to as many people as possible, to give them a portion of what you're going through. So what needs to be done is supporting these people, continuous counseling, That's why counseling is really important when one is getting tested for HIV.
Oh, yeah.
Even after knowing their status, it's really, really important to continuously counsel these people to come to terms with the fact that no one is responsible, no one is to blame for their HIV status, even if it's their parents, because we've seen children who even want to kill their parents because they have now learned that it's the mother who gave them the virus. So we should be able to appreciate that no one chooses to transmit to you the virus. No one chooses to give birth to a child who is HIV positive. Definitely every mother would love to have a healthy baby.
Yes.
So we should be able to appreciate and accept the HIV status and know that, okay, now I'm HIV positive. My role in life is to ensure that no one else gets HIV from me.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why most people, when we are doing the programs for young people, we always tell them that HIV should end with you. Because as a person living with HIV, you cannot protect yourself from contracting, but you can protect others
from the spread.
So it's all about continuous counseling, removing the stigma. Just like I said, most of these things are fueled by the stigma, the discrimination that the people face in the community. And then ensuring that these people have a wide support network. Support does not end. Even as you grow, we have seen young people who have been born HIV positive. They grew up and they're very well okay with it. But when they reach the different stages and they face different forms of stigma, then they backslide. So we need to ensure that at all times, a person living with HIV is supported emotionally to be able to go through the different stages of life. We have seen young people who have been able to disclose their status because they were supported at that level. And when they grow up and they start dating, they realize, now I don't need to talk about this because it's becoming violent or it's becoming a threat to my life and my partner. So we should be able to support them in the different stages of life to come to terms with living with HIV, to be able to appreciate what they need to do to stay healthy, to be able to appreciate the fact that they still have a life even after living with HIV, to be able to continue with their education, compete favorably in the job markets and live healthy lives as well to achieve their goals in life.
Oh yes, and we have seen many actually grow up to even get married. Like earlier said, that there are so many discordant couples out there. There are so many that have gone for counseling and they have been advised on how to live together without one transmitting it to the other. Then I believe we've also seen a reduction of mother to child because of improved health services, which I think also the authorities need to take down to some regions. When you look at northern Uganda, it's also one of the parts that has a high prevalence. Much as they have a very small population, usually it's not seen. But yeah, improving the health services is very, very important. And yes, support. Now it takes me to a question of PrEP. We all know PrEP. And this is usually used in young people who have been defiled or raped. I don't know the availability or its effectiveness, because when we talk about the spread among the young people, we have to look at these that are abused as well and how they can be protected. Patricia.
So yes, there is PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, which should you have been exposed to HIV, or should you anticipate that maybe you will be exposed to HIV, is a form of medication, comes in variable forms that you can take to see that you do not acquire HIV. Now, yes, PrEP is available, and both to young people, to older persons, especially those that have been compromised, defilement, rape, or doctors even, sometimes in surgery, if you cut yourself as you do the surgical procedure, sometimes they find themselves having to take PrEP. However, PrEP, pre-exposure.
That one, PrEP.
PrEP, exactly. Oh yes, post-exposure and pre-exposure. Yes, I get you. Both are available on the market, both pre and post-exposure, and both, if done right. If you take it within 72 hours, right? If you've been exposed and within 72 hours you take the medicine, you then do not acquire HIV. But then again, it still calls for commitment. Because as much as we call for provide these medicines, give us what we want, you should be ready to commit. Because if you say that you want PrEP, the pre-exposure. It's more like saying you have to take it every day. It's not a thing that, I take one pill, then I go and enjoy. It's not that. It is a commitment.
Yes.
Even when you have been exposed and you take PEP, you have to take for a couple of months. It's not a single tablet. So it calls for commitment the same way those living on the therapy, positive living, require commitment.
Wow.
So we shouldn't be out there going like, there is PEP, there is PEP, I can do whatever I want. It still all requires commitment, and I think in a way Ruth can back that up.
No, well, because of time, I'm going to ask her to give us the ending shots, something you want to say that we want to go away with.
Great. My ending shot will definitely be in line with the theme, which at global level is looking at Equalize.
Yes.
And why we are looking at Equalize is remove all forms of decriminalization.
Yes.
Let's create a leveled ground where we can all peacefully coexist. I love the word peaceful coexistence because at the end of the day, we all either infected or affected by HIV. So unless we appreciate the fact that that's it and it's not going to change, and we create opportunities for everyone, equal opportunities for everyone, remove all forms of inequalities against girls and young women and boys, and also be able to provide the different services that are needed to live positively, then we shall not be able to achieve the reasons why we are here today. But also let's all play our different roles. As different players, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, you have a role to play. Be it you here at the media, what you're doing is really
why
great.
I'm here.
What you're doing is really great to create awareness. So even if you're in the market, even if you're just a taxi driver, whatever you're doing, make sure that you preach about HIV, the prevention, treatment, and care. Then we shall be able to live peacefully.
Wow, thank you so much, Miss Ruth Awor and Miss Najita. Patricia, it was beautiful to have you. It was also so beautiful to have you, our viewer. I hope we have learned and we are going to do our part. If you are a parent, you know what to do. If you are a youth, also, you know how to protect yourself. That was it from us here on Issues at Hand. My name is Daphne Karungi Kangafe. Have a good day.